everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk about upcoming Disney projects that may or may not have been cancelled because of the closure. Today I've got 11 upcoming projects and we're going to talk about them, talk about the future they have, or no future as that may be, and just kind of discuss whether or not I think they're going to happen, when I think they're going to happen, and whether or not I'm really excited about them. So let's get started. These are in no particular order, they're just kind of in the order that I remembered they existed. So we're just gonna go through them and chat while we do. So the first upcoming Disney project is that Tron roller coaster in Tomorrowland. Now, the Tron roller coaster is obviously happening. It's quite far along in happening, and I think that it's going to be finished, I think, sooner than they're saying it is. That's a contention that I will make, is I think they're actually fast-tracking that one. The reason I think that is, one, seeing a lot of pictures of the show building and the ride progress, it seems like they've really accelerated since the park closure. And maybe that was just that they were about to put up that show building and then they just did. But it does seem like they're putting a lot of effort into restarting that project. I think they really want to get that done for the 50th. I don't know how close to the 50th that'll be finished, but I do think it'll be finished before the 50th, and I think that is a project that they are putting a lot of manpower into. In terms of whether or not I'm excited about it, I think I'll definitely ride it at least once in my life. I think it seems like a really interesting roller coaster. I don't know if I'll like it, because I don't really like roller coasters, but I'm definitely excited to see it. I think it's been a huge hit at Shanghai, and I'm excited to see what they do with it in Florida. I also just remembered 2 more projects, so we're up to 13, I think. Let's keep going. Next up is that Mary Poppins ride in the UK Pavilion. That's not happening, guys. It's not happening. Now, I think a lot of people, when they heard about a Mary Poppins attraction, they were thinking they were getting an actual ride, a dark ride, through the UK Pavilion. That is not what insiders are saying it was going to be. They're saying it was just going to be indoor teacups. It was going to be Mary Poppins themed teacups. It was going to be a really cheap project for Disney. They were just going to place some pre-made teacups in there and call it Mary Poppins. Just to have something else in Epcot for kids to do. But it's not happening. I think that was the very first thing they chopped when the parks closed. I think they were never that excited about it, and I don't think that they are going to put any money into that when they could put their money towards something else, like getting Tron done early, some of the other stuff that I think they're actually really committed to. Yeah, so in terms of whether I was excited about it, no. I don't care about teacups. I didn't care about indoor teacups. I didn't care about UK teacups. I don't think it's that interesting, honestly. Next up is that Spaceship Earth refurb. Everyone who's a Disney fan knows about the Spaceship Earth refurb and how they feel about it. I, for one, was not excited about it, mostly because my brother has never been on Spaceship Earth, and we were gonna go next May, and it was going to be closed for refurb, and I was going to be really upset because I think that would probably be his favorite ride at Disney World. So I'm glad they canceled it. I'll say it right here, I'm glad. I know they'll get around to it eventually, but for now I'm glad that it's postponed for the foreseeable future. And I really don't think they needed it. I think Spaceship Earth is great, and I think part of the fun of Spaceship Earth is that it's a little bit outdated at this point. Like a lot of Epcot and Future World. I think that's part of it. It's what someone imagined the future was going to be back when we were the future now, back when 2020 was the future. So I think that it's good to keep it that way, honestly. Next up is the exciting announcement about Splash Mountain. So this is definitely happening. I think now that they've promised to do it, they're definitely going to do it. I did find it weird that they didn't announce when they were going to do it, even a vague timeline about when. And this leads me to believe that they weren't planning on announcing it at the time that they did. I think they announced it because of the current political climate and the really amazing protests that are going on around the world, and rethinking the kind of statues and memorials and images we have that glorify racism around the world. And I think Splash Mountain really did fall into that as something that couldn't be ignored anymore. So I don't think this is happening anytime soon, especially with the closure, like totally compounded by the closure. But I think even regardless of that, I don't think this project was slated for any time in like the foreseeable future within the next couple of years. I think this was probably like a 2024 project, something like that they weren't planning on announcing probably until next year. That's the kind of vibe I get from this stage of the project and the way that they've announced it. So I wouldn't be too worried about like getting your last ride on Splash Mountain if that's something that's really important to you. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. But yeah, I'm super excited about it. I think it's a really, really good move. I think Tiana deserved a space in a park, and I think it's going to be great. I hope they give her a character spot along with the refurb. I hope they do that. I think that that would be a really good way to kind of like integrate it and like give her a little bit more space in the parks, because I don't think she meets very often in the Magic Kingdom, if at all. I think she might meet at the Grand Floridian Tea if you're like under 12, but I don't think she meets anywhere in the Magic Kingdom, so I think that that would be a good idea. Next up, I've lost count, we have the Galactic Star Cruiser. That is that Star Wars hotel. I think a lot of people don't quite understand what that Star Cruiser was going to be, and or is going to be maybe. Basically, the Galactic Star Cruiser concept was that it was going to be a land cruise. So you were going to stay in the Galactic Star Cruiser, I think for 3 days and 2 nights. It might have been 3 nights and 4 days, but I think it was only 2. Anyways, you were going to stay there for a couple of days. You were going to spend 1 day cosplaying and 1 day going into Hollywood Studios as your like excursion on the land cruise. So you weren't going to leave the Galactic Star Cruiser for that time. I don't think people quite realize that. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that the international opinion on cruising has changed quite a lot since the current global situation. I think that we're definitely going to see a big shift in demand for cruises, the number of people who want to go on cruises, and I think the Galactic Star Cruiser is going to fall into that kind of national shift in the way we view things. I say national, but I'm not American. Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know how much progress they had made on the Galactic Star Cruiser. I don't know if anyone has like pictures of that. I don't think anyone can actually get to where they're building it. So I don't know how finished it was. I think it was close to being meant to be open soon. I don't know if they're gonna finish it. If they are, I think the concept might change pretty drastically. I think it might just become a hotel. If not, we'll see how it sells. Apparently it was meant to be incredibly expensive too, like $15,000, which again, like in the current economic crisis, probably won't be very popular. So we'll see. That one I think is pretty up in the air. Was I excited about it? Yes. Would I have stayed there? Probably not. But I love the concept. Mostly because I'd never get on a cruise ship, so I liked the kind of idea that I wouldn't have to be on water. But now I'm kind of like, do I want to stay in a place for 3 days? Probably not. So we'll see about that one. Next up, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. This I think is happening. And the reason I think this is happening is because they developed a full new ride technology for this. They sunk a lot of money into Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. If you haven't seen the footage, it's kind of a roller coaster, but the ride vehicle itself moves to show you specific things as you're riding through it. So it's a really interesting concept. I think it's gonna be really cool. I've also heard that it's kind of meta in that it's about Peter Quill going to Epcot as a child while you're in Epcot in 2020. I think it's super interesting. I called it Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, didn't I? It's Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Whoops, wrong one. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Yes, I do think that's happening. Am I excited about it? Yes, I think if it has that like Epcot in the 90s concept. I love it. I do think it's happening. I don't know if it's going to happen on time. I think they might skip the 50th anniversary and go for the Epcot 30. Is it Epcot 30 or Epcot 40? I don't know. It's an Epcot anniversary. I think they might go for that instead of the actual 50th. But hopefully that happens. I think it'll be fun. Next up, we have Space 220, the infamous restaurant that has had its opening date pushed back like 3 times. I think this restaurant has to open. Like, I think it's finished. Didn't they release the menus for it? Or maybe they didn't. They just told us that it was going to be like global fare. I think this restaurant has to open. I worry about the way they're going to open it. What I mean by that is I think the intention was for Space 220 to be a signature restaurant. It seemed kind of upscale, and it seemed like it was going to be more of a like adults experience than it was really like a kids fun space adventure. And so I worry that things may have to change in order to fill the seats in that restaurant. I think people are going to be doing a lot less signature dining at Disney. I think people are going to want to be indoors a lot less, so they're probably going to want like a faster meal, and that really doesn't fall into a signature restaurant. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I do think it does have to open. Maybe not this summer. I think it was meant to open this summer. It might wait until 2021, but I do think it's going to open eventually. Next up is that Play Pavilion in Epcot. This is just a jungle gym. It's like a fancy jungle gym for kids. I don't see a reason why it wouldn't open. I don't think it's a like particularly difficult thing for Disney to do or a particularly expensive thing. Again, I don't know that it's gonna be fast-tracked as much as some of the other things are. So I don't know whether it's gonna open in like a year or 2 years or what. I think this is gonna happen though eventually. I think they do need more things for kids to do in Epcot, especially in the World Showcase. I know the Play Pavilion is actually in Future World, but just generally like more things for kids to enjoy in Epcot that aren't like quite so geared towards adults and adult-only parties and like eating and drinking and that kind of stuff. In terms of whether or not I was excited about the Play Pavilion, no, like it doesn't really fall into anything that I would need in Epcot. I don't have children in my party or like actually, so I don't think it's gonna be like super exciting for me, but I think that they do need to open something like it. So next up we have the Moana Journey of Water walkthrough attraction, which is meant to go into one of the interventions. What used to be one of the interventions, they're knocking it down. I'm super excited about this. I think this is gonna be really fun. It seems to me like it's like a giant splash pad, but also kind of like a fun nature walk, which I think is a great idea. I think it kind of incorporates like something the kids can do while like a kind of enjoyable walkthrough for adults. I think it's gonna be really cool. I think Moana needs a space at Disney World desperately. And I think that's a great place to put her and have this kind of experience with it. I think we also need like fewer rides. And I know that's kind of like a controversial opinion, but I think that Disney World is building so many like big e-ticket attractions right now. So much is focused on like upping the thrill factor. I think they need to get back to kind of what made Disney World special and what like does make Disney World special, which is that it's not a scream park, it's a theme park. It's more about the experience and the atmosphere than like screaming your head off on a roller coaster. So I am a big fan of this. I really hope it does happen. I don't think they've canceled it yet or like made it seem like they are canceling it. I also don't think it's particularly expensive for them. I again expect that everything will be pushed back, so I don't think this will be ready soon or even for the 50th. I think everything at Epcot probably is going to be pushed back to that next year for their own anniversary rather than the 50th. So expect those walls up in Epcot for a while. Next up is the Epcot Convention Center. Now, this is something we don't necessarily actually know is happening in the way that some of the concept art has made it seem like it's happening. Some of the concept art has made it seem as if they're building an actual, like, structure with, like, a couple of floors for a convention center in the middle of Future World. I don't think that's happening. I think that maybe they might renovate a space or just kind of, like, set off kind of an open area in that Future World plaza for more convention space, but I really don't think they're building a building, and I especially don't think they're building a building now. So I think if you're thinking that they're getting that, like, permanent convention center place, that's not happening at all. I think that's probably, like, after Mary Poppins, that's the next thing that went in their list of things they're ditching. Next, we have Reflections, a Disney lakeside lodge. This is gone. Like, they haven't said it, but this is gone. The cursed land of river country hits again. So, if you don't know, Reflections was an upcoming Disney resort. It was kind of Wilderness Lodge themed. It was really close to Wilderness Lodge. It kind of backed up onto Fort Wilderness, so the campground area. It was like on that other side, on Bay Lake. It was going to be kind of like Wilderness Lodge, but like a little bit fancier, I think, was kind of the concept. Like a little bit more deluxe than Wilderness Lodge, which is often thought of as like a lesser deluxe, even though I think it's beautiful. It was also going to be a DVC resort, so that's an important thing to note. Is it was going to be the newest DVC resort. It was also going to have hotel rooms, but it was going to have these cabins. It was going to have all of those kind of DVC villas of like 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom studios, that kind of stuff. This was like very quietly canceled. If you look up Reflections on Disney World website, you'll find nothing. They completely erased that this was happening right around the time that the parks reopened, which is super interesting, especially that they haven't announced they've canceled it. They're just kind of quietly getting rid of it. And I think this stems from the history of canceled Disney hotels and river country, for that matter. So if you don't have background on this, there are 2 Disney resorts that are both value resorts called Pop Century and Art of Animation. And they are physically identical properties, but they're completely different concepts. They were not meant to be that way. So Pop Century is themed after the second half of the 20th century. And it's got these like big props. It's all themed after different decades. There are like clusters of buildings that are different decades. And Art of Animation, the structures are exactly the same. And the reason for that is that there was meant to be another half of Pop Century called the Golden Years, which was going to be the first half of the 20th century. There are a few buildings that were actually completely constructed when Disney canceled this project. So there's part of Art of Animation that is, the rooms look a little bit different than the rest of it, and that's because it's the original Golden Years property. The reason Disney canceled Golden Years is because of 9/11 and the following financial crisis. People were much less willing to travel, much less willing to spend their money on a Disney vacation, and really like not interested in going to a large kind of important metropolitan area with a lot of people. People really changed the way that they wanted to vacation after 9/11. So it took a lot of time for Disney to end up having the demand to create Art of Animation. They did it, it's a great resort, but it took a lot of time. A similar thing has happened with River Country, which was the original Disney water park. It was kind of like rustic themed. It was from the 70s, I believe. It opened in the 70s. It was incredibly unsafe, and they actually piped in water from Bay Lake. So it was a really interesting concept, and it eventually just became outdated. People didn't want to go to kind of a rustic theme park anymore. They'd opened Blizzard Beach. They'd started to kind of make their water park presence a little bit more robust, and so people didn't really want to go to River Country anymore. It closed in the early 2000s, and of course the early 2000s were not a great time for hotel properties, and so they closed River Country, and it has stayed untouched for like 15 years at this point, 16 years. There have been a couple of things proposed for River Country. That includes an extension on Wilderness Lodge, a water park just for Wilderness Lodge residents, kind of like Stormlock Bay. That has all fallen through. And then they finally announce Reflections, this brand new property that is going to sit right on top of River Country, finally get rid of River Country, which has been a Disney hunter, Disney like kind of behind the scenes vlogger place. Everyone goes and like videotapes River Country. It's been that way for a long time. They finally are going to put Reflections on top of it, and it's definitely canceled. So I believe that the reason they have not announced that River Country is canceled is because they do not want people going there. People went to the Golden Years abandoned property. People went to River Country when it was just River Country abandoned. They're now going to try and go to the Reflections abandoned property. They don't want people there. I think it's likely pretty dangerous to be there. It's really not been taken care of. They don't want to have anybody get hurt. They don't know what's going on in that area. It's probably been pretty untouched for like a few months now, so they really don't want people there, and that's why they haven't announced that they've canceled it. But you can bet all your money now. Go to your bookie, tell them Reflections is canceled, and you'll get all your money for it. I can promise you that. That's never happening. Was I excited about it? No. I think we have Wilderness Lodge. I thought it was a weird thing to make a like nicer Wilderness Lodge right next to Wilderness Lodge. I thought it was unneeded, and that kind of theme in that corner of the market is really already saturated on their own property, so I don't know why they would open another one of those. But it's kind of a sad thing to see a Disney resort canceled, I think. So next up, of the things I remembered while I started filming this, we have the Ratatouille ride. That's going into the France Pavilion. And rumor had it, when Disney closed, that they were about to start doing cast member training on the Ratatouille ride. It's finished. So do I think it's opening? Absolutely. I think it's opening as soon as Disney has enough staff back to warrant it. I fear that means that we will be waiting until the international representative program comes back. I don't know how long it's going to take. Hopefully it won't be very long, because I want those people to get their jobs back. But I do think that they will not open that until everyone who is meant to work in Epcot is back in Epcot. So hopefully that's soon. It's definitely opening, it's definitely happening, and it's going to be really, really fun. I'm really excited about it. And the final project that Disney has upcoming is their top secret walkway from the Grand Floridian to the Magic Kingdom. This is one I find weird that they never announced or like even have alluded to. For the last few months, actually, they've been kind of quietly clearing the land and building bridges to connect the Grand Floridian to the Magic Kingdom. If you're unaware of how the monorail resorts are laid out, you've got the Magic Kingdom here. If you go this way, you've got the Contemporary. Down at the bottom here is the Polynesian. Here is the Grand Floridian. It's a little bit further away from Magic Kingdom than the Contemporary. And they're all connected by a monorail that goes all the way around. So the Grand Floridian, while being technically quite close to the Magic Kingdom, you've never been able to walk to the Magic Kingdom from that resort. It's weird. You can get kind of pretty far and then the road just ends. And no one's really understood why. It seemed like pretty easy. And so for the past few months, they've quietly been doing this kind of construction along the edge that will connect the Magic Kingdom to the Grand Floridian, which is really, really exciting. It also means that every single resort on The monorail loop can now walk to the Magic Kingdom, which is exciting because the Polynesian is actually completely connected to the Grand Floridian via a kind of path by the water. So that means that if you're staying at the Polynesian, you can absolutely walk to the Magic Kingdom now, even though they'll say it's a Grand Floridian walkway. It's gonna be a great addition, and it's definitely happening. They've already done all the work for it. I think they just have to like pave the road. And I think it'll be really, really good for taking some pressure off of the monorail, which is obviously going to have some pretty reduced capacity because of social distancing. And so I think it's going to be a really good thing that we get a walkway that allows people to like be outside while they're kind of getting into the Magic Kingdom and not be in an enclosed space with people they don't know. In terms of excitement for that, so excited. 2 thumbs up. I think that's a great idea. I think it's gonna be so good. We're Polynesian people, obviously, but I think it'll be great to be able to walk there anyways and take some pressure off the monorail and really be able to kind of leisurely get to the Magic Kingdom, which is nice. I think, unfortunately, it will up the price of the Grand Floridian and the Polynesian. Well, maybe it might not up the price of the Polynesian very much because I doubt they're gonna market it as a Polynesian walkway. But I do definitely think the Grand Floridian will become more expensive than it already is, which is kind of ridiculous because it's now got this like walking path. You can walk to the Magic Kingdom. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a fantastic addition, and I'm really excited to see it. So that is 13, I think. That is 13 projects of the Magic Kingdom, whether or not they're canceled, whether or not I'm excited about them, and what I think is going to happen with them. Hopefully you found this helpful and interesting. I think a lot of people are kind of looking into Disney World right now and kind of figure out what's going on. How are they gonna deal with the fact that they lost 3 months of revenue? They lost, I think I saw something that was like $40 million a day, every day they were closed. So really, really terrible for their projects, obviously, and I hope that we get a lot of the exciting things that are happening. I do think a lot of the stuff that they are building, they've already invested enough time into that it would be kind of strange to dismantle. I don't think they're going to start anything that they haven't already started, and I don't know that they're going to cancel anything they've already begun working on except for Reflections, which I know they've broken ground on, but they're definitely finished with that. I'm really excited to talk more about Disney news coming up. I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the Disney opening coming soon, and hopefully you enjoyed. Bye guys.